Welcome to the Chase Merrell podcast. I am your host, Chase Merrell, and we are all about helping people get freed up from what's holding them back so they can build up who they were made to be. If you want to help us continue to make an impact with this podcast week in and week out, consider joining our new Patreon community. For as little as a cup of coffee a month, you can be a part of helping us get the message and mission of the podcast out to more people more effectively. This is a way that we can come together as a community, and you'll get access to behind the scenes stuff, additional resources and content, and so much more for just as little as $5 a month. You can head over to chasemerrell.com and click Patreon to jump in and get started. Now let's jump into today's conversation. Well, here we go. Welcome to the Chase Merrell podcast. Today I have Pastor Greg Fairrington with me. Welcome, Pastor Greg.
Hey, Chase. Good to see you. So good to hook up. We were trying to figure out how long it's been.
Yeah. I still don't know. I don't know how long it's been since we've seen each other in person, but
well, yeah, it probably goes back to because you're that fanatical Seahawks fan, and I try to eliminate those people from my life.
I don't know if you can see.
Oh yeah, you got. Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I see it and I remember it. So I try to get those things out of my life.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this podcast is going to release 2 days before or a day before Thanksgiving. And
good.
That's a game. That's a game we're going to have to make sure we're ready for. And in fact, I'm taking my two oldest boys, Holly and I, are taking our Weston and Bo to their first football game and Seahawks game at that Thanksgiving game in Seattle. So
they're dead. You brainwashed them. They're dedicated Seahawks fans.
They've been filled with the Holy Spirit. Yeah, they know which way that they were.
Just remember, the colors of heaven, gold and red. All right, it's colors of heaven. All right.
Well, hopefully it's not the color of post-Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday.
We'll see.
But man, what a privilege to have you join me today. This is such a gift for me. When I think about this project I've been doing all year, 52 project, 52 conversations with 52 different people who have made an impact on my life. You've been on my list from the beginning, and in large part, we'll get into in a moment really how this is even got started and why you're here. But before I do that, would you just take a moment, just for those that have no idea who Pastor Greg Farrington is, just give them a snapshot and introduce yourself with just a little bit of who you are.
Sure. I don't want to sound corny, but I'm a faithful husband.
Not my wife. Not corny at all, man.
To my wife now for 36 years. We've been married 36, going on 37
That's awesome.
years, and two wonderful children that are adult children that are married. I have a granddaughter by my daughter Lexi and her husband Stephen, Scotland, Ruth, and another one on the way, Sunday Marie. So number 2's coming. I'm sure Trevor and Bianca. It's just they're just over a year of being married. So I'm sure I got other grandchildren coming in my future. So that's kind of, I'm very blessed to have this wonderful family and God honoring family, great heritage, great legacy all the way back from both sides. The Fairrington family, my dad was a pastor. My mom's still 93 and she's driving still. She sits on the front row, 11 o'clock. And she's just so sharp in this moment. And then, of course, Kathy's family, the Oates family in Sacramento, and what they have done to impact Sacramento, not only just in the real estate market, but most every significant church in Sacramento has been blessed by the generosity of the Oates family. So I'm a family man, love my family, and I'm a pastor of a dynamic, thriving church. Been there 34 years. So 1989, my wife and I started this church. 34 years. My goodness. Yeah, I was 16 years old when I started that church. And
well, I wasn't going to be born for 2 more years. So when you started it, I mean, that's insane.
That is crazy. And we're still going at it. I mean, we're probably busier now, doing more now than we have ever have done. And so I'm a pastor of a thriving, growing church, multi-campus now. We can talk about that a little bit later, but
Yeah.
my love, my passion is the church, and that's my heartbeat. I love the local church and the potential and the power that is in it. I'm a golfer. I love golf, and I kick your butt every single time. I mean, I can remember you a high school guy, and you're going to take on this 40-year-old, and I think I remember you quitting mid round. It was like, I am getting humbled by this old man on the.
Oh, that's probably true. See, it's the consistency. A part of your story, a part of your life is the golf game that you play. It's just consistent down the middle. Not a lot of crazy here, not a lot of crazy there. Just hitting it pure and straight.
Keep it in play, you know, and like Trevor, he's trying to take me on. He's, I don't know, 33, 32, something like that. I'm 64. He's a 4.5, something like that, right around there. And he's beat me twice, but most of the time the old man's got his game. And so I'm still wearing the belt. I still got the belt on. But love golf.
Yeah, and no doubt that you're going to hold that belt probably still for a little bit longer. Although Trevor's hitting 4 or 5 handicap, I mean, he may not be too far.
He's right on my tail, but you know, it's right here. It's right here. It's not all the physical. It's
for sure.
Bring that to.
Well, I think about 34 years that you've been leading. It launched and started a Sunset Christian Center, now Destiny Christian Church in Rockland, and also Sacramento campus, and so much more. Obviously, that's spread over the last several years, decade and a half. But I came, and where we got connected was my family moved to Rockland from the Mammoth Lakes, California area, little mountain ski resort, right? So that I was not happy about that. In fact, I've had a couple other guests on the podcast over this project that have, whether Kim and Dave Leatherman or Kyle Marciavetsky, that were part of those, youth days, that I told some of this, but like my parents they're getting the worst of me because they took me away from my friends in Mammoth, and they said, all right, well, if you find us a church, Chase, you can be in charge of finding us a church. That was like their a peace offering.
Right.
And so I found online this junior high link to a church website it was Detour, but the church was called Sunset Christian Center. But I couldn't believe that this church had a youth group that had a website. And so I was like, we got to go. We went, and the junior high ministry was just from an 8th grader trying to be cool coming into it. Yeah. It just felt like it felt kind of weird. It felt like everybody was raising their hands and jumping. And I remember telling my parents after the service, we're not going to go here. And they were like, well, we loved it, so we are going here, and we're going to figure out, you're going to have to make it happen. And so that was where it started. 8th grade. Oh, wow. My parents had, and their experience of being in the adult service, it was better than mine initially in the junior high.
I remember meeting your parents. You had a little thing. It's called Get Acquainted. It was all the newcomers once a month, and I still remember. It was called the Friendship Cafe back then. Yep. And I remember meeting your parents for the first time and telling us that they would move from Mammoth. And so I don't know if I met you that night or not, but I did remember your parents. Yeah, that's crazy. You have a good memory, because at that night we were there, but there wasn't anything really for kids, and we didn't want to go to that. But there was this kid in the gymnasium of the church that that had this basketball shooter thing, and he was just in there shooting baskets. And so my brother and Landon and I were like, all right, well, maybe we'll just and that's where I met your son Trevor for the first time. Who ended up becoming a great friend of mine, and was in my wedding in 2012. And we had a great friendship through those years in high school and after as well. So just, crazy how long ago that would have been. 2004, 2005. Incredible. And, wow. And part of why, beyond just coming to the church, right? The impact that my whole life was changed within the ministry and the church of Sunset Christian Center and what it became Destiny Christian Church of that. In that same year at a winter camp, I really gave my heart to Jesus for the first time. And I got filled with the Holy Spirit, and I got called into ministry, and I met my future wife. Wow.
And that all happened within, about 6 months of coming to Destiny and beginning
Right.
to get involved in the ministry of Kim and Dave Leatherman and Kyle Garcia Bethke with the youth. And that's part of why, beyond just our relationship, the fact that because of your yes to the Lord, at that point, 15, 20 years ago, before, you planted the church, maybe
Mm.
I don't do all the math, that I experienced what I got to experience because of part of your yes to the Lord. And I just think about that now as a lead pastor myself, and having that whole full circle of going there's people potentially, right, that I get the privilege of shepherding or leading, that who I have no clue what kind of destiny impact
Impact.
it'll
Yeah.
have on their life. And
Absolutely.
I'm sure little did you know, right? Like, I think about
Yeah.
that, like, you're not necessarily thinking about that all the time, but to get to have a moment to
Yeah.
look you in the eyes over the screen and say thank you.
Oh,
uh,
that's awesome.
Thank you for saying yes to the Lord, for continuing to say yes to the Lord, to know that you it hasn't always been easy. I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm sure you wouldn't uh say that it's been like a completely smooth ride, all the way
Right.
through, but you haven't pushed the eject button, man. And
Yeah.
your yes is been a significant impact in my life and my wife. I mean, my wife's family, the Delaney family, like
Yeah. Yeah.
they came and were a part of Destiny as well for years, that
Yeah.
we wouldn't have met had it not been
Hmm.
for the church. So anyway, just to take that
Yeah.
picture and say part of this conversation is a thank you for your
Wow.
obedience and faithfulness that you've had for so many years.
Well, thank you, Chase. I appreciate it. Bible says, do not despise the day of small beginnings. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know what little seed you're going to put in the ground. And 34 years of doing this, you realize that sometimes you don't see the immediate increase. You don't get the, it's been 7 or 8 years since we've connected, and hearing your life and hearing your little children and all this, and you're the lead pastor. You just don't know when you put a seed in the ground what's going to happen. So, not despising the day of small beginnings, because God could have something significant in
Yeah.
store for you.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
good. And
Yeah.
there's the two other things that I'll say, man, just as we kind of go in more to the furthering of your journey of from when we met to where even you are now, but I can't move past the fact that you made pouring into and making the next generation a priority in your church. And again, that's part of why we ended up there and stayed there, and why so many others did, because that's not always the case. And I know you had two young kids in that kind of that age. Trevor being a year younger than me, Lexi was a year older than me, so I think I got the benefit of having a pastor who had kids in my same generation. But regardless, you made the investment and the space to bring great people into the team, to say we want to invest in the next generation. And I just, man, that can't be understated. So
Well, that's why I'm still in the game. I mean, it really is, because I'm 64. It could be like, hey, you've had a great run here, 34 years, built an amazing church. The reason why I'm still pushing it, the reason why, hey, there's still more land to take is for the next generation, my kids and their kids. So I'm just not going to sit back and say, okay, retirement's great. I'm going to stay in the fight. I feel like there's a Caleb spirit in me. Give me the hill country. Let me take on the giants, because I'm fighting for the next generation. It's what really my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see that. You can see that kind of fire that's been coming out of you, even from the outskirts. Like, I'm not up close and personal, but I can see it even, over the last few years, and as well. Just you're not you don't look like you're slowing down in the sense of your passion for the mission, right?
Right.
And so there, one more thing, and then I want to actually press more into that passion for the mission thing. I'll never forget, as a freshman, 8th grade freshman, sophomore in high school, the opportunity. I got a couple opportunities to just spend time with you guys as a family. And on those times, it was the first time that in my life, what I got was a window, a behind the scenes window
Right.
of a pastor, like like I know pastor up on the platform and behind the pulpit, but I got this pastor who was in on a vacation, relaxed, and to be able to see that you were the same person behind the closed doors as you were on the platform, was so impactful for me, and gave me some hope that, like, man, no, there really can be men and women out there that are leading like this, that are in ministry, that that aren't duplicitous and their character is intact from they're not being somebody they're not. And that made a huge impact on me. I was the hospitality, the like letting me get to see that world of just you with your guard down, playing golf and just listening to stories. I remember you asking, we did the 20 questions game multiple times.
Yeah.
Just, it kind of broke the, whatever, maybe even unhealthy out there for some people. I think there's a reverence and an authority and respect that needs to, I think there's healthy places for that, but I think at times it could be unhealthy as well. And you really just, the Lord used you just to go, man, I'm a real guy. I have a real family and I got real life and I enjoy this as much as I'm on the platform, and that's where you see me. So that was really impactful. And now that I'm living in that more on the week to week, I strive to be that same person on the platform as I am off the platform.
Right. I have some of those fond memories. I remember we flew down to Palm Springs.
Yeah.
And we're having breakfast with my father-in-law, and he gave all the kids $100 bill. You remember that?
I do remember that.
And I think, my daughter's talking about going to the outlet malls or whatever, and Trevor's talking about maybe the new Jordans he's going to buy or whatever. And you, Chase, said, I'm going to keep this $100 to go on a mission trip. And that was impressive. I still remember that, saying, I'm going to keep this $100 because I want to go on a mission trip. That was great. I saw that, your desire for ministry, your desire for God at that point. And it's always energizing to be around you because you had such a strong passion, you still do, for the things of God. You saw that at a very, very young age. That was very obvious to me, that your heart was in the right place. You desired God to use your life. And, I remember the Bible study or whatever that would call at Whitney High. You started, you met Trevor there, right? His first day, right at the bus stop. And you kind of ushered him into relationships around that school and your desire to see God do something on a secular campus as a sophomore. It was tremendous. That fire that you had inside you. And obviously I saw that through your years in youth ministries, with the Leathermans, with the Bethkes, through the years, just to see your hunger, whether it would be, hey, I'm going to preach the word, I'm going to lead people into worship. That was always very evident to Kathy and myself. There was a call on your life that you loved God and you were sold out. So great memories, wonderful memories.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And I have a lot of those as well. And that space you made for me and guys like me to be up on that platform and lead people in worship. And, there were moments where, I don't know, you or Pastor Joel Marple would have been the guys that pegged me for a nickname like Smiley or something.
Smiley was your nickname.
I only could sing like one or two fast songs, and it was like "Let the Praises Ring" and something else like that. "Oh Happy Day" or something. And I just remember feeling like the empowerment that I got from you guys to be who I felt like God was calling me to be. I didn't recognize it as much then as I can now. But I'm not the leader that I am today had I not had the space and the belief from the leaders above me who are older in their adult, mature, wise years to go, hey, well, we're going to let this kid come out with his passion. That might be a little bit, all over the place, but we want to let them have the opportunity, and that the
100%.
Lord used that to build, man, so much in me in those formidable years, to the point where, I got my first opportunity to be on staff at a church, at your
Right.
church, and on your guys' team. And, and I literally, since being hired by Destiny Christian Church in January 2011 was my first month
Wow.
officially. I also worked at Chick-fil-A a little bit for the first 6 months
Yeah.
until I went full time. I have been in full-time ministry since that day. I have
Right.
not had another vocational job outside of that, and it just got the start there. So, just massive.
Well, let's see. You found Christ, received the baptism of the Holy Spirit, met your wife, got a call to ministry. Your first position was at Destiny Sunset. I'm expecting a pretty nice Christmas present this year from you, Chase. I didn't realize how indebted you really are. My good, I'm going to text you my address and my sizes here,
For sure.
so that it's awesome. It's awesome to see what God has done.
Text me your size for sure. I'll send you a nice Seahawks jersey, and
wow.
you will be so grateful. I know.
Yeah.
No, but man, it is unbelievable. Here's what's so cool for me too, right? Like, people that are getting to listen to this, that either are part of my church or ministry, or they're friends from somewhere else around the world or whatever, they're gonna get to know that. And one day when my kids get to really watch and see these stories and these conversations, like, to get to go, this happened, and this is part of why, we get to be here. We are here because of this. And so it's just so cool for me. And I think the thing that, a lot of us that know Pastor Greg and Kathy Farrington, right? We see, you mentioned some words earlier on, the like legacy, and the families that you both came from, having long-standing impact and influence in the city and the community and really the world around them. Faithfulness, stick-to-itiveness. There's just a lot of that, like, consistency stuff over the years, and I that's part of what is so, I think, rare about the two of you and your ministry, is that when you take a step back and you look around at who's out there in the same kind of category as you guys are, it's few and far between when it comes to people still standing that, either are still in a faithful place that God has called them and placed them, and they still are passionate about it. They're not just crusty, complaining and like, gosh, God, just hurry up and get done with this so I can move on to retirement or something else. But they might, or others of them might have been, their integrity didn't last that long, and they couldn't handle the pressure of what came. And yet here we are, like you mentioned, 34 years of ministry here, and 36, almost 37 years of marriage. And faithfulness is going to be one of the words that's used to describe this. What do you say when you think about how, right? I'm sure there's lots of things you can think about, but like, what comes to the top of your mind and heart when you're looking at a 32-year-old who wants to be sitting in a place in the next 20, 30 years of my life to go, man, I'm just as excited about preaching God's word and leading people into places with God. But I'm also excited about my kids and my grandkids. I've been faithful to my wife. What are you telling a guy like me, or those that are listening that are going like, man, I want that. I want to be in that space. What was helpful for you when you really think about that to help you be where you are in that way?
Yeah, it's now that you get to a place where I'm at, I'm 64, 34 years of pastoring this just one church, just thinking that I was ordained in 1983. So that's like, what? Yeah, I was ordained in 1983. It's kind of like in the sports world. You say, hey, you got to build one day at a time. You got to win one day at a time. And so that's kind of like my life. It's like, I'm just going to show up. May not be the most gifted, might not have all the great strategies or whatever, but there's a determination.
Yeah.
I have never, ever once thought in my life, I'm not going to be a faithful husband. I've never had that thought.
Yeah.
I'm a faithful man. I'm married to a woman. I've made a commitment to a woman. I'm not going to drift from that commitment. And I wake up every day honoring that commitment. And the same way as a father, I'm not going to disappoint my kids. I'm not saying perfectionism. I'm just saying there's a determination, a perseverance. And so the highs and lows and the disappointments, whether it's in family life or in ministry, you push through. You just have a determined heart. You just say, I'm not going to give up. And that's been just like I wake up every morning saying, you know what? I'm going to go to the gym. I'm sometimes you just got to show up, and you're not going to be maybe the most productive that day, but you're there. And that's the way you build a great life, a legacy life, is that you show up. You don't give up. You don't let the glitz and the glamour of the world or whatever the world would throw at you, or ministry or whatever. I know what my call is. I know what I'm committed to, and I am not going to look back. And until God punches my ticket, I've never looked at retirement. I was like, no, that's not even in my vocabulary. So someday they'll get me to go out to the pasture and say, okay, hey, you had a nice run, but I don't even think about that. I mean, I've had so many people say, when are you going to retire? I don't know. I have no idea. I'm living in this moment, and I committed to this moment. But that's how you build a legacy. That's how you build faithfulness. You have to do it one day, one decision at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. When you think about like your soul health, when you think about like how you stay or keep yourself in a place where, like I think to myself, man, that's the longevity of 34 years in one church. There's got to be some internal like ability to know how you get restored and get rested and get to keep going. Cause like, although I've seen you in the gym, you do have some machine, like, got some machine, what was you used the word for a while when I was there, we were in high school.
Optimal.
Optimal, Mr. Optimal. You got that, but there's still a humanity side to you, right? I know and acknowledge that, but what have you, like, how have you stayed healthy on the inside as well? Like the soul health, like rest. So how have you not burned out? I guess would be the question.
I might be a unicorn. I don't know. It's just that I quit isn't in my spirit. And so I see life as this amazing opportunity, a challenge, the call to ministry, all of it is like, so what do I do to stay healthy? Well, I mean, I can give you the cliche answers and things, but it's a determination.
Yeah.
You cannot take in more water than you're able to get out of your boat. So eventually you will sink. So when water gets in your boat, you better get it out. And I've learned how to do that when I say, okay, hey, emotionally or spiritually fatigued or whatever. I got to know that. I got to recognize that. But I'm not one. And again, I probably have an older generation. We have to have boundaries and things like that in ministry. I really don't buy into that. I'm really like push back against it. People say, how do your kids love the church? I mean, why are my kids on the front row still worshiping God? And, why is that? Because I think they saw my love for the kingdom. They saw my love, and they saw disappointment. They saw that, but they saw my heart pure before God, Kathy's heart pure before God. And so it comes back to that determination that you just recognize, okay, there are going to be heartaches. There are going to be stress levels, and recognize that, but don't let it consume you. Yeah. Don't become so inwards focused. I get tired of this self-help stuff and, being, aware of your inner. I'm telling you, I wake up every morning. I know what I need to do to meet with God. And I get my heart. The greatest advice my dad ever gave me, he passed away 2 years ago, man of God. He said, Greg, Never let a day go by without warming your heart before God.
Okay.
Greatest advice I've ever received from my dad. So every day,
Mm.
and sometimes it's better in other days, but I'm warming my heart before God, keeping my relationship with God fresh. And I'm energized. I'm energized by what God has put in my life. I don't let the deficits of my life control me.
Yeah. There's two things around what I've seen over the last 3 to 4 years or so, 2 to 3 years from afar, right? So I'm thinking Facebook or online presence, because I haven't seen you in person, but because of COVID and all that, it's
Right,
been everybody's seen the ministry space for the most part on that outside.
right,
Um,
right,
there's kind of a two-part question, and one of the things is, and part of what I see in my own life in ministry is learning how to navigate both. Well, just learning how to navigate the voices that are like, "You're awesome, you're great, Chase, man, you're doing it." This
yeah,
you're God's gift to Thurston County.
right,
And then the other side of that, right, which is you're garbage, and we're gonna go to a different church that's doing whatever else. That those voices that have those ends of the spectrum are they're challenging at times to ignore and not give too much ear to one or the other. When you think about your 34 years of ministry, and even in the last few years that have been extremely loud all around, both in the positive and
right.
negative, how have you found that ability to stay that course of like, I'm not going to let the fans or the critics basically impact really where I'm going with what I feel God's calling me to do?
Great question. Great question. I think the first thing I would say is know who you are. I look in the mirror every day. I understand who Greg Farrington is. I don't have this inflated thought of this. I am God's gift.
Yeah.
I know my failures. I know my weaknesses. I know my inabilities. I know the areas that I'm strong in. I have a realistic understanding of who God has made me to be. And so, there will always be haters, whether you're loud or not loud.
Sure.
There's always going to be people who disagree with you. And, that gets elevated as you get more visible and as you take maybe a more aggressive stand on things. There's a lot of haters out there. Sacramento Bee wrote 17 articles on Destiny, Greg Farrington, and how terrible we are. And, it was all over the place. But that didn't affect who I am. Those people are going to say what they're going to say. Even some very, very close friends who walked away and said, "Hey, I don't want to have a part of this man's, life for whatever reason, this ministry." Yeah, that's hurtful. That's a sad point. But again, knowing who you are, I'm not trying to please
Yeah.
the crowd. I don't know if people know my story. I don't have to do this for a living.
Right.
The Oates family has tremendous resource and wealth. And I'm doing this because I'm called. I could walk away. If I was depending on the approval of the crowd, I'm gone. I'm out 100%. Or the rejection of the crowd, the haters out there. I'll just be in a new resort next week,
Right.
playing a different golf course. But I know who I am. I know who I'm called to be. And I know this moment, the moment I'm in right now, I'm very, very confident of what I'm hearing from the Spirit of God. And so when there is a kind of a confidence inside your spirit that you're moving in the area that God has you in, or has you in, the platform that he gives you, then it's not an arrogance, it's a confidence.
Yeah.
So I know who I am, and I know my calling in this moment.
Yeah. There's no mistake, at least from my seat, what I've seen come out of you or the church over the last couple of years is, at least from my vantage point, man, like it seems like you're more confident in who you are than I've ever seen you be. Like, and you've been a pretty confident guy. I wouldn't say, that that there's been insecurity from, at least we all have insecurities, but like, it feels
Sure.
more than ever like there is a true path of like an unhesitant, unapologetic. This is who God's called me to be, and I'm gonna be me, and I'm gonna do my best to honor Him in that as He's called me. That's coming out of of who you are. And it's not an act. It's not you're not trying. It's, you can tell it's authentic, and it's probably been even more in there than even maybe you've realized that, but maybe even the circumstances over the last few years have magnified the need for that authentic piece of who you are to press through the fray. And that's what I'm seeing, at least that's what I'm hearing, from my outside perspective, right? Because I'm not up close and personal, but there's something about it that that authenticity, that it's part of what a lot of people are drawn to and are looking for in a world that has a lot of facade and a lot of fluff and a lot of unnecessary pointless words and stuff that's happening around what they need to say or what they could say. And that's something that I really admire. And and here's, let me share one quick story with you before we wrap up. And I'll ask you the question I ask everybody on the podcast around your a freed up to build up moment maybe in your life, but right during kind of not the beginning of COVID, but middle, right? You guys had made some pretty strong
100%
decisions to keep doors open and all that, right?
Right.
And at that time especially, it wasn't the mainstream thing. It was very
we were out there on an island.
And I remember that even some of my initial thoughts as I was watching that from my seat were, man, I hope that the people that don't know the Lord, that would, cause a barrier. God, I hope that doesn't push them away. Pause for a moment, because that was my initial thought, right? And I wrestled with some of that, just because I have friends and stuff out there that I'm going like, okay. And I got a Facebook message. I got a Facebook message out of the blue from a friend of mine from high school. He was a year older than me, and I won't share names, but when I was a junior in high school, I was in a peer counseling class, and the Lord gave me a word for this young man. He was a year older than me. He wanted nothing to do with God. He was on the far extreme. Religion, Jesus, God. He was not on that path. And I felt like God gave me a word that I needed to tell him, which was, 1, you're going to give your life to Jesus. And 2, I think God's going to call you into ministry one day. So prepare for that to happen. And I remember being scared out of my mind to have this conversation with this guy, because he was pretty intimidating. And I knew he didn't really even like me because I was about God stuff. But I did it. I actually had a conversation with him, and I gave him that word, and he didn't say much, and then he walked away. That was my junior year in high school. That would have been 2008. Fast forward to about a year and a half ago, I get a Facebook message from this guy out of the blue. I don't even think we're friends on Facebook. And he messages me to say something along the lines of, Chase, I will never forget the time in high school that you talked to me about God and what God wanted to do in my life. I just want you to know it made a big impact on me. Thank you. I've been going to this church in Rockland called Destiny Christian Church. Oh, wow. And my relationship with God is better than it's ever been. And he was talking about how this pastor at Destiny Christian Church was changing the way he was listening to how God could be a part of his life. And I had this moment, and this is what I would say to anybody listening that knows you or doesn't, right? This just principally, right? That when it comes to the kingdom of God, when it comes to the way the body of Christ is it's not only is the body within the individual component of a church that's in a context, but also I believe the body, capital C church, is all made up of different parts so that it has different functions to be a part of the body, the head that is Christ, but the body that is the church. The different parts of the body that is needed in this time to reach people in different places in their seasons of life, in different points of where they're at. There's no other church in the Placer County area that would have reached this dude the way that God used you and Destiny in that time, right? And so for me to sit there at one point and go, man, this may not have been exactly how I would have done it, but then to see the sovereignty of God and him go, hold on, whoa. But if Pastor Greg Farrington and Destiny didn't do what they're doing like this, this isn't going to happen in this young man's life. And the reality of God opening my eyes to the fact that, man, what we need more than ever is men and women called by God, pastors and people alike, not just pastors, but that are unapologetically being who God's called them to be, to run the mission and race God's called them to run for such a time as this. And man, that's what I see you doing. And at 64 years old, in a season, like you mentioned, of life where you could be doing so many other things. Yeah. You are doing just that with a passion and a commitment and a boldness like more than ever before. And I admire it, and I respect it, and I'm inspired by it myself to be more of who God's called me to be without worrying about the voices. And let that, I'll spare his name, but let that guy's story be even a hope and encouragement to you, that it's like, man, you know, and again, you're confident in this, I know, but for me, it was that moment the Lord was like, hey, hold on. Before you think or feel anything about whatever in this way, don't be mistaken. I'm bigger than all of it. And I'm going to use all of these different things to reach people in different ways where they are. And we need that in the church, you know? So, so I wanted to share that story with you, man, because I just thought it was really, that's awesome. One example of, I'm sure, tons that, you know, how destiny's been an impact, especially in this last season, in a world that's been, you know, in desperate need of a healthy church.
Right. You know, Chase, you heard me say probably when you were at Destiny, I really believe that church is the hope of the world. Yeah, because we are the ones that have been commissioned with the message of Jesus Christ. And so at one level, I'm very optimistic about the church. But at the other moment, I'm concerned about the church, the passivity of the church in this moment. You know, we have gotten to the place of nothing really moves the church anymore. Whatever, you know, do ministry this way, that way, whatever. There's kind of this defeatist attitude that the church has. And I feel like the call in this moment is to awaken the church. This is a very critical moment for your children. Very critical moment, you know, to see the craziness of what's happening with our young people, our children. And it's going to take a strong church. We have basically neutered the church. We don't want to offend anybody. We want people just to, okay, this is a nice place. Let's get together. Let's feel good. Let's tell a story or two, have some great music. But it's going to require a better cup of coffee for a revival than just what we're serving at the church, right? So we got to do better. We got to make Jesus the roaring lion again, and not domesticate him and make him a nice little house cat. We got to be able to roar a little bit. And I think that's the spirit that God has put into Destiny in this hour as we launched, you know, our story of taking over the former Capital Christian Center, you know, this mega church in Sacramento that it basically came to insolvency. And God put us in this moment, gave us this platform to go to this venue here, this school, this church, you know, a school of 1,000 kids, and this legacy church. And so I believe that God has used our voice in this moment to rally people like your friend. And it's exciting. It's awesome to see. I believe in revival. I believe in a move of God. I think it's going to happen. I believe it is going to happen in the state of California. I'm not running from the state of California. I don't want a mission, as C.D. Studdard said, that's safe within the sounds of the chapel's bell. I want to run my mission 1 yard from the gate of hell. And so, California, here I come. And I'm going to be loud. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to have conviction in my life. And so I'm excited. It's like, Caleb, give me the hill country. Give me the place where the giants live, because I want to go after it.
I've seen a few clips of over the last year or two of you making a statement similar to that around like, I'm not running, I'm not going anywhere, you know, and I feel it in a similar way with living in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State, right?
Absolutely.
In that sense of not that I don't dream about moving to Idaho one day. I mean, it could happen. It could be there. But bigger than that is the call that I feel to stay right here to make the difference that God's called us to make. If all of the good people leave, you know what I mean? If all of them go to the place that it makes the most sense and is the most comfortable, we're going to miss a huge opportunity to make the bigger difference, I think, that God's calling the church to make. And that's not to say God's not calling people to go different places, right? But I resonate with that. And I think that I've been inspired by that call. I've heard even come out of, out of your platforms of man, we can stay a yard away from the gates of hell and understand that Jesus is still going to be holding the keys. You know what I mean? And so that what a charge to the church in this season. And I think part of what my desire is, Pastor Greg, is I think about what God has done in your generation, is continuing to do in your generation, is to find ways to continue to partner with that generation, right? I think that there's a gap right now where it seems to be a resurgence. There's some in your generation that are calling it retirement, calling it I'm good to go. This world, United States is going to hell in a handbasket. Let's get as much glory and retirement as possible. And then there's a resurgence for sure, where I'm seeing the few and the proud, if you will, like the 64-year-old Greg Farringtons that are like, no, man, this is for my kids, this is for my grandkids and my grandkids' kids. I'm not done. But then there seems to be this gap. There's like I don't know where, and so my generation, I'm going like, we can't do it on our own. We got to figure out a way to stay tethered to the generations that have gone before us, while still also looking at the generations below us. And so I'm on a mission in my role to not just have a young church, but to have a church that, I've got 87-year-olds and 84-year-olds and beyond here. And I got 20-year-olds and 18-year-olds. And I'm trying to find a way to stay tethered to the wisdom and the experience of the generation that's gone before me. And also do the impact God's calling me to make with the generation that I'm in and the generation following. And it seems hard. It seems like there's a lot of stuff in the way. And I'm thankful for leaders like yourselves who are, their eyes are open to the next generation. Their eyes are open towards making space, as you did years ago, for younger generation, for me to be able to have the opportunity to cut my teeth in places and spaces that I had no right probably to be, but you made the space. And so, man, I hope you keep doing that. I know you are, and I know you will, but that's something that I'm praying for in the future as well, that I can continue to be tethered to guys that are still in the game, but have won the game a couple times and can help me navigate the stuff that's ahead of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're proud of you, Chase. Extremely proud of you and Holly, what you guys have done, given your life and your call to ministry. So just keep on doing what you're doing, one day at a time, build upon it, and God's going to have a great future. Who knows? You might be on somebody's podcast when you're 64 years old. Who knows?
I hope so. I hope so. Well, man, thank you for taking the time. And the stuff happening in Sacramento, I think about Capital Christian Center, the Destiny Sacramento campus now, and the partnership and what God's doing. And for such a time as this, man, to be in the capital city and have the presence of God, which I'll never forget how much you said this, and I say it all the time as well. The presence of God changes everything. When you got the presence of God invading that place from the inside out, man, I'm praying and believing for a revival, as you said, that God really begins to make a massive dent in that city, in that area, and the surrounding counties, because we're desperate for it. And I'm glad that you haven't pushed the eject button yet, because he's not done.
Staying in the fight.
Well, man, thanks for taking the time. Please give Kathy my love and a hello. And just, man, I'm so excited to watch you as well. Continue to enjoy fatherhood, grandfatherhood, and keep Trevor at bay from creeping up on you with the handicap and all that. But hope maybe one day there'll be some ministry parallel. We can be on a golf tournament together or something. Because I gotta.
All right.
All right, man. Hey, thanks for joining me.
All right, go Niners.
All right, love you, man. Talk to you soon, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye bye.
See you next time.